Hello and welcome back on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for Freebook Friday. Freebook Friday!
Fantasy Edition.
Hi, my name is Cece and I love finding gems that don't cost money to show that you do not have to spend a lot of money to read fun stuff. And I also love collaborating with other content creators. So combining these two, my series Freebook Friday was born. And today I'm reviewing something with another lovely guest host. And here they are. Hi!
Hi!
Do you just want to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Tina. I'm a rather new booktuber and my channel is Sound and Fury Book Reviews. I review science fiction mostly, but I also enjoy some historical fiction, literary fiction, postmodern stuff, and classics. I tend to kind of go off on my own script, and I like doing book tags that are kind of silly and funny. I don't read any YA, so I wouldn't go to my channel for that. I do use Twitter and Instagram as well. I have links on my channel to those. I post a lot of book-related content. I'm also an indie author myself. I self-published a post-apocalyptic book last year called What Branches Grow, and it's on Amazon and Kindle and Kobo and all the good places. It actually won an award. It was a top 5 category finalist, and I'm going to show it because, I don't know, I'm very proud of
Yes.
it. But that's basically me. I review a lot of books on my channel. My channel's pretty funny and pretty fun, and I include a lot of like GIFs and pictures in my reviews and stuff like that.
I love that.
And I love talking to people, so that's about it. Sorry, I talked for a while.
Oh, no worries. That's absolutely fine. I think that's a breath of fresh air in some of the channels that I'm watching. So definitely head on over. I love a little bit of a focus on sci-fi. I love a little bit of focus on not YA because we do have a lot of booktubers doing those. I mean, I love YA myself as well, but I love a balance. So it's good to have people who do non-YA as well as much, you know?
Yeah. I do a lot of classic sci-fi too. I do these kind of like big review wrap-ups where I go through and I kind of dive into like why they included certain characters and why certain characters weren't included, things like that. It's kind of fun. I don't know.
That sounds super interesting. I definitely have to check that out more and dive into your videos then.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want to give us a quick synopsis of the book that we read together for this review video?
Sure. We read The Watchmaker's Daughter by C.J. Archer. It was a kind of a fantasy historical fiction. The story follows a woman named India who at the start of the novel has just been dumped basically by her fiancé so he could take possession of her father's watchmaking store. So she's on her own and kind of destitute, and so she takes a job with this mysterious American man named Mr. Glass who wants to use her connections in the watchmaking world to find this specific watch repairman, basically, so he can repair his fancy pocket watch. It's kind of confusing because he won't explain why he needs this particular person to do this job, and India grows more kind of wary of him as strange things start happening, but he's hot, so she sticks around, and that's basically how the story starts.
I love that.
Makes sense.
I love that. I mean, yeah, it's very accurate. Yeah, she sticks around because he's hot. She does have her suspicions, but yeah.
She's like, oh yeah, he could be a criminal, but you know.
Oh, I love that. I have a feeling we're diving right into the characters at this point. Do you want to give a first impressions of what you thought of the characters?
Sure. I liked the main character, India. I thought she was resourceful and smart. Like, she was kind of willing to break convention, but it didn't feel like kind of out of place. Like, she wasn't like too modern, I found. I kind of enjoyed following her around. I don't think she's very deep. Like, everything kind of is surface level with her, but yeah. I liked her story.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do think that, especially in the beginning, that there were some like childish tantrums that I was not sure were needed. Yeah. But then again, I feel like they potentially might fit with like the Victorian era that we are living this in. I'm usually a big fan of strong characters. I love interesting characters. I love morally gray characters. But the one thing that I don't like is when authors are trying to write a strong female character in a different time with today's perspective and or it's just a fake strong character, but in reality they're just very one-dimensional. And this is kind of what I felt like happened to Willie a little bit. So we have this strong female character that you can tell the author wanted to write strong, but in the end Willie was just stupid and was just like, but I'm gonna do it because a man told me no.
Oh, she was so annoying. I was like, I'm gonna love this character, and then I'm like, oh, she's so inconsistent and just so like, she's so whiny too. I found. I was like, oh, I don't.
But
it was so
could,
frustrating.
You could tell she was supposed to be this like strong, tomboyish, I'm wielding guns kind of badass character, but it was just done in a non-strong way. I feel like a lot of authors confuse strong with bitchy.
Yes, for sure. It's like they don't understand that strength comes from a whole bunch of stuff, not just like physical strength and being forceful. It's like you have to also be strong emotionally, and like be compassionate is a form of strength and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
she wasn't very well rounded at all, I don't
think. The strength is not only about being of contrary opinion to what the men are saying. Sometimes a strong character is always strong because they're agreeing with what's smart, because they show vulnerability. I think that there's a big strength in showing vulnerability, in admitting when you're wrong. Strength is such a huge array, but then usually strong female characters are shown as, hey, I'm saying no to what a man says, and that makes me strong. And no.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think she tried way too hard with Willie.
Yeah. But you wanted to say that you liked how it ended for her?
I liked the aunt, actually. I think that's what I was going to say. The aunt character, she was quite funny.
The aunt,
yes.
Yes.
Yes. She kind of actually fit more, I think, with the time period.
Yes, and that's what I meant as well with like the time period. Obviously, some girl in the Victorian era has different understandings of what independence, how you're acting, what your role is, and being a. I'm kind of a little bit annoyed with a lot of authors also often writing this strong, quote unquote, strong character, which just means that they're acting out of era, and they're acting with today's values, and they are just showing how wrong everybody in that era was for not having today's values. So that is something that I really despise. But then again, I sit here and say, "Oh, India, she was acting childish and whiny in the beginning and showing and throwing tantrums," and I'm wondering, is that actually what I'm complaining about? Usually, has the author done this right here? Because I feel like it might be in character for that era.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because it's almost like she was taking a lot of liberties kind of with the era, I found. Like, it was like she tried not to make her too kind of modern, but at the same time she didn't want her to... I don't know. Yeah, her character... Well, I did kind of like her. I don't know how typical she is of an actual woman from that time period.
Right. I mean, I have no idea about this era, so I can't tell. What did you think of our Mr. Glass?
I found him very wooden. I just didn't find a lot about him. I hated him at the first instance. It's not really a spoiler. It's like the first 5 pages, how he picks her up. And I was like, if he doesn't apologize or make amends for this, then I have nothing to do with this man. But he did, so I was like, okay, fine. I'll forget about that little instance. I don't know. Other than that, he was fine, but I was just like, I don't know. He didn't really have anything compelling about him for me anyway. I'm like, oh, some sickly man.
Yeah. I feel like he is this cliche, mystical love interest for this type of era book. So I can see a lot of readers who love this, love a good, interesting fantasy / romance / historical fiction in that era, swooning over him because he fits like the box perfectly.
Yes, very much a romance trope.
Yeah, so I think that even if it might not be the right character for me to read, because I'm not a big romance reader, I can see that there's an audience for exactly that archetype of a male interest character.
Oh, for sure. I definitely agree with you on that. Yeah. But yeah, he's not for me. I was more into the other characters. Like, oh, this guy's interesting. He's
Yeah.
it's a bit different.
Shall we move on to chatting
Sure.
about the storyline?
Okay.
So, what were your thoughts on the plot, the storyline?
I thought the story was like compelling. Like I was involved with it. I thought it moved at a good pace too, which I liked. Like I didn't feel like it was slow or anything, or that anything kind of felt rushed. I thought it kind of lined up in a plausible way. I'm trying to remember. I wasn't super fond of the magical kind of aspect of it, even though I knew that was what it was going into it. I just kind of hoped that the magic would have been kind of more prevalent I'm more fond of like fantasy where the magic's prevalent. I'm not super fond of like magical realism where like one thing is kind of magical, so I was kind of like, I wish it had been like time travel instead. But I think when it comes to like kind of the twist near the end, I thought that was actually pretty well done. I'm trying to think. Did I see it coming? Not really. I don't know. Or I did, but not to the extent that it did go.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, the same for me.
Sorry.
No, absolutely the same for me. I think I like the magical aspect a little bit more than you. I think it was elegantly done, that it was... I'm usually not a big fan of magical realism because oftentimes magical realism has a lot of absurd, but this happened, and where it just produces an error in my brain. I need like hard logic with magic as well. Like things have to have rules, things have to not just pop up because they pop up and be absurd. And I felt like this was not the way that I usually experience magical realism. It was just more of we have one magic element in this world, and I do like that because it wasn't in an absurd or weird way.
Yeah, I did like that. It felt normal, like it felt naturalized.
Exactly.
So I didn't hate it. I was just like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, overall, we had a lot of like cliches for this type of book, but I thought that most of them were quite well done. I think it was a quite easy read to be in the plot. About like 2/3 through, I had a really tough time continuing because it felt like it started to be a little bit lazy. There were a few moments where I'm like, okay, that just isn't fully what I would expect now. Especially the one moment, and I don't think that this is a spoiler, especially if I'm not naming names, but there was a conversation between characters asking another character if this character has magic. And the character who's being asked just answers with a no, and then they move on. And I was like, that just does not seem logical. Like, if you're asking a character who has never known that magic exists, you don't just ask, hey, do you have magic? And then they're saying no, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. You explain to them what it means to have magic in this world and how it shows and what it is. And then this character who was asked if they have magic explained all these like magical instances that they had experienced with weird stuff like addiction and drugs that lets veins glow. I don't know, but that
was
part,
so weird.
yeah, it just kind of didn't fit. It just felt like usually in this type of book, one person who is like the knowledgeable character about what's really happening in the world just sits down with the unknowledgeable character at one point and explains, this is what the world really is. Are you familiar with it? Or could it be that you might be off this like different world or something? And that didn't happen. It was just like, do you have magic? No. Oh, okay. Then just forget we talked about it. What?
Yeah, that was so strange. I do remember that now that you said that. I'm like, that was really weird. I must have just like kind of been like, okay, and just like kind of ignored it. But I never think about that part. That. Yeah.
It's just one of those little examples of like, it felt like a little bit lazy where you could have just added one page and made this flow much smoother.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's. But it's just a small complaint.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right, should we then move on to chatting about the writing style? I feel like we might have ticked a few things off our list to chat about already with the plot, but anything else about the writing style?
I think I liked that it was pretty clear and concise. Like nothing was confusing to me, and as I said, I kind of liked the pace. I didn't have to struggle through it
Yes.
or anything, but I wasn't kind of aching to get back to it at the night. But yeah, I think it was an easy read, which was nice. It was,
Yes.
it didn't require a lot of mental capacity to read it, which was nice though.
Absolutely.
It was entertaining.
Yeah, and I do like myself a book in between like those really heavy books that I like to read that is just easy and just chill.
Yeah, a good vacation read.
Exactly. Yes, that's it. I think that one thing that bothered me a little bit about the writing style is that we have a lot of tell and not show. So telling that she is, that she feels betrayal, that she's angry in the beginning. We're being told that she's starting to develop feelings, that she has the hots for our love interest. But it's only the narrator telling us that that's what's happening. We're not following her emotions really. So that's what bothers me a little bit. I love to experience and not being told what's happening, to an extent obviously, but yeah, I fully agree with everything else that you said. It's just that this little caveat that I wish that we would have experienced a little more than being told.
I found that too, yeah. She definitely, I think that's why she felt so surface level to me, is because, yeah, we don't really see inside her. We don't get to feel her develop these things. And her father, too, had recently passed, and she doesn't really talk about anything to do with that. Like, she doesn't go, I miss my dad or
Does she
anything,
grieve
really.
at all?
I don't think so. She mentions him, like, 3 times, I think. But I'm like, she doesn't have any memories of him growing up with him. Like, I didn't feel any connection with her and her dad. I don't know.
It's more like she's angry that he passed.
Yeah. And even that
like,
wasn't very strong.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there could have been a little bit more of that. But other than that, yeah, I think the pacing and that there was nothing that really stood out to me negatively kind of makes up for it. So it's, as you said, this nice little vacation read where you don't think about, oh, I need like this poetic writing style or I need something like special. It's just nice in between.
Yeah, it's just an easy read. I was reading at night and I'm like, I'm not falling asleep. If I do, I won't miss anything.
Let's chat about what we liked best about this book.
I honestly liked as we just said, like how it was easy to read. I just found like it was just enjoyable in the fact that I didn't really have to like worry about anything getting too dark or too heavy, though there was a part that got really dark for a minute there when I was like, oh god, where is this going? But luckily didn't happen. I think, like
I mean, it didn't get as dark as all the other books that I'm reading currently, so in between it felt very light still, but I can tell which part you mean, and it isn't just lighthearted stuff.
Yeah, that just kind of came out of nowhere to me. I'm like, this kind of took a really serious turn that I wasn't prepared for, and I'm not sure if I liked that. Given this book seemed kind of light on the whole. But I guess maybe that helped ground it a little bit. But yeah, honestly, I think the best thing I liked about it was I liked that it was just an easy kind of light read with characters that I didn't dislike.
I fully agree. I found it funny, entertaining to a degree, and just this little book that kind of fits perfectly between all these heavy books that I like to read in like between. And I personally enjoyed the sprinkle of magic. I do enjoy heavy fantasy, and I enjoy heavy like science fiction and science fiction fantasy, and just having this which felt a lot more historical. I mean, I love historical fiction as well, but having this historical fiction with just a little bit of a fantasy element just felt light. It didn't feel complex to get into. So a lot of the books that I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. A lot of the books that are fantasy take me a long time to get into because there's so much world to build. And with just having this element that is not absurd, like in most magical realism that I read, the world made instant sense. So it wasn't hard to get into, and that's what felt light about it as well.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. It was definitely, you didn't have to learn anything. You're like, all I know from any Victorian movie you watch just kind of fits that.
Yeah. So what did you not like as much about this book?
I mean, it did take a few liberties with the accuracy and the time period, aside from the magic. Like, there was nothing like I found that was like particularly egregious, but I didn't feel like it read as much as like a historical fiction. Like, it wasn't, I guess because it was so light. And it was like kind of lacking on kind of the background details. I didn't find like things were described
Yeah.
in a way that you usually get with historical fiction. I'm not sure if you know what I mean. Like there wasn't a lot of.
True.
I guess it was lacking the kind of like long paragraphs of world building that you get from people trying to show that they've done their research.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think was actually kind of a flaw, like a big flaw, is that so Eddie and India, they were formally engaged. So given the time period, she would have definitely taken him to court for breach of promise and sued him for damages. So that's kind of how inheritance works in England at the time. Is like there was this legislation that was designed to prevent the very thing that happens to India at the start of the novel. I felt that was a bit of an oversight because that was something that was definitely
A big one.
like a big one. I was like, wait, how can he have just like done this to her? Because there's like laws in place to prevent this from happening. So that kind of annoyed me, but I was like, whatever, all right.
I'm kind of glad that I didn't know that while reading, because I probably would have thrown the book across the room if it wouldn't have been on my Kindle right in the beginning. Because honestly, for me, this is a big one. If you claim to be in the Victorian era, I don't need you to have those like elaborate research or something, but this is lazy to me. This is just lazy to dismiss a big factor just to make your story work.
I had to go back and check it because I was like, I studied Victorian literature in university, and that was like 15 years ago. So I was like, am I making this up? And then I did some research, and I was like, no, I do remember this. I remember this is accurate. So I was like,
I love that I know that now.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, 'cause
Thank you.
This would happen all the time. That women would get, even if they didn't get like swindled, they could, if a guy just dumped them because he decided he didn't want to get married anymore, they could take him to court just for like damages to their reputation. It was kind of fascinating.
So the whole premise how the book starts is pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of like, then I was like, whatever. I'm just gonna keep going. It seems like it's easy to read. That's why with other things like Lily, I was kind of like, okay, I didn't expect that she was going to be overly accurate either because of that whole thing. And
Right. I mean, when it came to that, it just felt to me a little bit more. Overall, I had the feeling that I was reading steampunk without reading steampunk, because it had these like inaccuracies. It did feel accurate, even though I didn't know it to an extent that you just described, but it didn't feel accurately historic to me. It felt like steampunk, but then there were no steampunk elements.
yeah, like, it was hard because if I'd actually gone through and like really made notes on like what was wrong, I could have picked up on a lot more stuff. But I was just like, I'm just gonna accept this as like a light period piece.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this isn't like a like Longbourn, which was like a Pride and Prejudice adaptation. I don't know if you've read that. It's like a
Right.
adaptation of Pride and Prejudice told from the servant's perspective. It's really interesting, but it includes a lot of historical details and things like that. I really liked it.
No, I have not.
It's really good.
It's not my favorite era
okay.
to read about, but
For people that like
that's why I also don't know much.
people that like Pride and Prejudice will probably like that book. It's very good.
That's a good call, though. I mean, that's a very good call to... I love when we can identify who would love a book, because usually if I don't like a book, it's not because the book is bad, it's because I'm not the target audience, and when I'm able to identify who the target audience is within a review, it just makes my day, because I know that I am able to help people find what they like by identifying if this is for them.
Yeah, oh for sure. That helps me all the time. I'm like, I don't really like this, but I know a few people that will.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that other than that, what personally for me I didn't like as much was that I felt like there was no real relationship chemistry, probably because we were told and not shown. But I just felt that there was a lack of chemistry build-up. It just felt a little bit awkward at times, but then again, I'm not a romance reader, so I might not swoon as quickly, and it takes a little bit more for me to read chemistry, potentially. I did like that it was kind of insta-love, but it wasn't, we are madly in love, and we just get married within a day kind of love.
Yeah.
It was more of a teasing kind of thing, and I appreciated that part. But still, I didn't feel the chemistry.
Me either. I was like, does he even like her? Like, what's going on? I ghost wrote to romance novels, like for a ghostwriting company. And so I don't read romance. I read a few obviously for that job just to kind of get the gist of it. But now when I'm reading books that have no chemistry, I'm like, oh, you know, you could have inserted a bit more things here, a bit more things there. So it was kind of funny to be like, this romance is so flat. It's so flat. There's no like, there's no like staring at each other, like longing gazes. I guess because, she just kind of said, oh, she finds him attractive, but we don't know why.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's so good to feel validated for this because, as I said, I'm not a romance reader, but knowing that my experience is not just because I don't like romance, it's because there's actually something missing from the book feels very like, I feel validated.
It definitely, I had that listed down too, is like there was like no sexual tension at all.
Oh, awesome. All right, what did you end up rating the book?
I gave it a 3.
Same.
It was enjoyable, but it didn't blow my mind.
Yeah, absolutely the same. I think it, if a few aspects that we just chatted about were better, it could have easily gone up to a 4. But it's absolutely enjoyable, but it's not really better than a 3.
I agree, exactly, 100%.
All right, so let's get to the verdict. Let's put our fist out and decide if we give it a go and read it or pass on it on 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yay! I love when we are not of the same opinion, but I also love when we're of the same opinion. So I love that we both say go read it. And you already mentioned what you think the target audience is, and I think that if you have watched the whole review, you probably know by now pretty well if you're going to be the target audience or not. Yeah,
super light mystery, you know. People that really love the Victorian period aren't gonna like this if they really like historical accuracy, but if you like those kind of light Victorian pieces that aren't accurate, you'll probably love this. It's great for like reading on the beach, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, no, that sums it up perfectly. All right, so I think that this is it. Let us know if you have watched until this point, if you're going to pick it up, if you have read it, how you liked it, if you agree or disagree, if you have additional points to make. Let us know if you are, based on this review, going to pick it up or not. Just put it down in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Other than that, I hope that you check out more of this in the future. Just make sure that you're subscribed and hit the notification bell whenever to be notified whenever a new one comes up. And make sure that you are going to visit our lovely co-hosts channel before you're done watching BookTube today. Hit that subscribe button and pretty much watch everything there is. Anything you want to say?
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It was. I love this experience. I was so happy that you did this with me. Anytime you want to do something like this again, anytime you find a book that's free that you want to read with me again for this, hit me up. I would love that. And that is absolutely for everybody out there as well. If you want to do this with me, hit me up. There's 4 to 5 Fridays in a month. So there's more than enough room for everybody to do this with me. All right. So I guess all that's left is to say I hope you are back on my channel really soon. Until then, bye!
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever?